Time has expired. Senator Smith.
Mr Deputy President, well, if you're a South Australian, you can find no comfort in the Labor opposition's defence of the Australian car industry. No comfort whatsoever in the Labor Party's defence of the Australian car industry and, by exception, the workers in South Australia. Let's be very clear. Let's be very clear. The effort by the Australian Labor Party to talk about the car industry is really an effort to disguise their carbon tax position. To disguise their carbon tax position. We heard from Senator Colbeck that the carbon tax imposes a $400 production cost on Australian cars. The carbon tax doesn't discriminate. It applies everywhere across the country, so it's just as important for South Australians to eliminate the carbon tax as it is for West Australians in my home state. So let's be very clear. The Labor Party's effort to talk about cars is really an effort to hide from the carbon tax. So why would the Labor Party today want to hide from the carbon tax? Well, let's just think about what the Labor Party said recently about its carbon tax position. Wayne Swan, on the 15th of August 2010, says, "No, it's not possible that we're bringing in the carbon tax. That's a hysterical, inaccurate claim being made by the coalition." What did we have under the previous Labor government? A carbon tax. What did the former Prime Minister Julia Gillard say? There will be no carbon tax under a government I lead. There will be no carbon tax under a government I lead. And just in case you thought that that was a historical position, let's go and have a look at what the Labor Party was saying this month, this year, about the carbon tax. Let's go to the South Australian member, Mr Butler. Let's go to the South Australian House of Reps member, Mr Butler. It's all well and good to say that you want to terminate the carbon tax, the relatively high price on carbon immediately. On that we agree. Who said that? The South Australian minister, opposition spokesman Mark Butler. Let's go to have a look at what Richard Marles said. Let's have a look at what the House of Representatives member Richard Marles said. We need to acknowledge the fact— oh, there's silence on the opposition side. There's silence on the opposition. So let me speak. Let me speak clearly so you can all hear. We need to acknowledge the fact that Tony Abbott won the election and we lost. And we need to face that reality, and questions of mandate are issues that we need to consider. And where I completely agree with Nick Champion is that we do need to be choosing our battles very carefully when we are in opposition. So what did Nick Champion say? What did Nick Champion say, you ask me? Yes, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, what did Nick Champion say? Well, let me— Nick Champion, I think we should abstain in the Senate. Allow the Abbott government to implement its policies in their entirety in terms of carbon. That is direct action and the repeal of the carbon price, and that would basically make him responsible for climate policy in Australia. Absolutely correct. And by making him responsible for climate policy, reduce the costs on Australian manufacturers. You would think that was simple. You would think that was simple. But, Mr Deputy President, let me be clear. Let me be clear. The Australian government has a position. And if you'd like to go to the internet, you can see it as well. The 30th of October, it was made very, very clearly. The coalition government has been clear since day one. We will take a careful and methodical approach to considering the future of the Australian automotive industry, and that response will be based on the Productivity Commission review of the sector. The only way to give this— the media statement reads, "The only way to give this industry and its future the detailed consideration it deserves is to put the politics aside." To put the politics aside. This is still my intention, Mr McFarlane says, and it's up to the South Australian Premier, Mr Weatherill, to decide if it's his intention also. There is no mistake that government senators from South Australia support the Australian car industry and support the car industry in their own state. Mr Deputy President, if I had more time, I would share with you what happened under the previous government when it came to the Australian car industry. Let me be quick. Vehicle production in Australia was over 335,000 units a year. When they left, it was down to 221,000. There were 200 businesses in the automotive supply chain. Now there are less than 150. That is a 25% reduction. Let's be clear again. What did Labor cut? They cut the Green Car Innovation Fund twice by $200 million each time, and then they abandoned it altogether, reducing support to the automotive industry by a further
Thank you,
$800
Senator
million.
Smith. Your time.